Hey friends, welcome to the library or welcome back to the library. I have with me today author Megan Mary, and I'm super excited. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. Before I get started picking your brain, because I will go off on a tangent, can you tell us a little bit about how you got started writing and just kind of your journey?
Yes, let's see. Well, when I was younger, I used to really like to write poetry. And I did get my 2 degrees in English literature, my bachelor's and my master's. But at that time, I was more studying medieval literature and Shakespeare and things like that. And I wasn't really reading fiction per se at all. And when I started writing this story 10 years ago, it really was a short story and it almost was a little bit on the children's side. And I wrote 10,000 words and I stopped. So it wasn't until a year or so ago that I picked it back up and started writing it again. And when I did, it really became a totally different story. I mean, it still had the essence of the first short story, but it really grew into something else. And that's kind of how it went. That's kind of how it started.
That's fun. I always like to see when authors are like, yeah, I started with something a little different. It just kind of evolved into this. I've had a couple of them of like, yeah, we did poetry or we did like short stories as a kid. You know, when you're a kid, you always make up little things like when you're playing, when we play house or play Barbie, and it's like a story version of that. Because I like to see how it evolves. Not everybody chooses to go the exact same, and then some people expand on what they did, and that's a lot of fun. But it looks a little bit different according to everybody's life.
Yes.
So now I want some details because I devoured the Dream Haunters, and I'm like, I need to know. So, and thank you so much for my copy of it because that was so much fun, especially around the spooky season. I want to know where it came from, your vision behind it, what your inspiration was for it.
Yes. So it came from a dream.
Okay.
And the initial dream was 10 years ago, and it was of a talking kitten.
Okay.
And so Wixby was the whole inspiration for the book.
Oh.
And at the time, it was a short story called Wixby and the Time Traveling Pumpkin. That was the short story. And it was just this very vivid dream that just seemed so real that when I woke up, I was like, okay, I have to write this story. And Hannah was in it as well. Either she was in that dream or she was in another dream. So that was really the impetus for the story. And I absolutely love Halloween. It's my favorite holiday. And I love mysteries and watching movies. So for me, when I write, I see it as a movie in my head. And I really wanted to bring together all the elements of everything that I loved and put them into the story.
Okay. So this is sure out of my ignorance and lack of knowledge here, but the Celtic background, was that intentional or was it just helpful with the backstory of Halloween itself?
It's very intentional because I am half Scottish, half Irish. And so I'm very much influenced by the old ways and the Celtic heritage. And so that's part of the reason that I observe Samhain and part of the reason that it's one of my favorite things. So I really wanted to incorporate that history and have it be educational as well, because a lot of people like Halloween, but they like it for a different reason. And they think that, kind of mistake my obsession with it sometimes and think that I'm into horror or gore or that kind of thing. And for me, it's very much a mystical holiday, and my love of it is very much around that. So I really wanted to make sure that there were those Celtic elements. present.
Yeah. That's really intriguing. And I was really kind of taken aback, not necessarily like meaning in a bad way, but like a lot of people just go with like with the movies and their backstories of Halloween. And so to see something educational was nice because it was like you have this mix of a real background for a holiday that we have, as well as the mystical and fantasy. And it wasn't horror. It was really, really intriguing. And all of the details with the pumpkin carving, that was so cool. I was like, that is so unique.
I'm so glad you like that. Yes.
And just the ideas, first of all, I thought it was really cute. The cats talked. I loved that. Just the whole time I'm reading it, like, this is really intriguing. And I agree with you. Like, Halloween is not always about like the horror, and a lot of people take it from what it used to be and have made it into, well, the same as Christmas. It has become like a just fantastical thing, and instead of actually observing holidays.
Commercialized, yes.
Yeah. It's a little sad. I mean, it's nice to know that there are people who do enjoy it, and I enjoy like the fall, the warm colors, the warm feeling, and I like the mystical side of it that happens as you get further into the fall. I am ignorant on a lot of things and traditions and how holidays have become what they are now. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. I was raised in the South, and your Southern Texas Bible Belt, you don't just get a lot other than it is what it is. But I like to see the culture and the way you entwined it with the supernatural, I would say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm glad you appreciated that. And that was really part of, I really wanted it to be inspirational and enchanting, but also educational. So I really wanted to spread that historical knowledge of the holiday and really what that observance is about. The wheel of the year turning and the veil of the spirit world thinning and the opportunity to embrace the darker side of ourselves, which is so intertwined with dream work, truly. And so it has a lot of spiritual aspects to it that blend that spooky part with the fantasy magical part.
Yeah. And the idea that a character who feels like they've had everything taken away from them gets to go through this personal journey of not even just like a development, but an empowerment and a sense of rightness once they finally get to connect with their family. And it was empowering as is. And I'm in my young 20s and I'm like, I have family, but I don't always get with them distance wise. And so that was nice too, because it was like, she did this without family in a sense of, this is my aunt and not a man that I met. That was a nice change.
Yes. And I only had one person say, I was so disappointed that she traveled all the way there and she didn't meet anybody and there was no romance. It's like, look, it does not say romance anywhere in the summary or the blurb or anything, you know? So no, it's really it's not about finding a mate. It's about finding yourself and discovering her own power truly. And that's why in my dream work, I call it dream empowerment, because you really are empowering yourself when you learn to tap into your subconscious and your intuition and those spiritual and ethereal aspects of yourself that you might discard on a daily basis. And so through the story, it really portrays her journey in embracing that part of herself of, I say in part of it, throwing off the hamster wheel of doubt, really discarding all of the stuff that says, but you can't and you shouldn't and you're supposed to and all of that, to really step into what she's called to be on a greater level.
Yeah. And it's getting used to accepting that from within. Because, you know, she goes back and forth of like, I feel the call and like, I want to trust my intuition, but then it was like, And that's a real juggle that a lot of people have. It's like, I feel like I'm supposed to go this one way and my gut tells me, you know, go with this. And then I'm like overthinking it. And that's really, we get in our own way a lot of the times. Like if we would trust our instincts.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's easier said than done, right? I mean, of course, we know we're supposed to do this, but it's a daily reset every time to really give that precedence over everything else because it's so subtle that it's easy to ignore. And then in retrospect, you say, yeah, I thought that. Oh, I knew I shouldn't, whatever. And then you say, why did I question? Why did I not listen to that little inner voice? And so it's really trying to give the space and credence to that, to encourage people to step into their own and to start listening to that little voice a little bit more.
Yeah. So we know it started off with Wixby, and you said it was a little bit with Hannah. Where did Aunt Julia come from, and Old Man Adams? Where did you find inspiration for these? These are very detrimental side characters.
Detrimental?
Yeah, they're detrimental to the story. I feel like it. Okay. I feel like, well, in my opinion, they were, because it was like if Aunt Julia hadn't gone through what she did, Hannah probably would have not gone through it. I mean, she would have just stayed in her little bubble, and then Old Man Adams saves her.
Possibly, yeah. So I grew up watching Sunday morning cartoons and the Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Bus and Old Man Withers at the amusement park. But I also had a neighbor that was literally Mr. Adams. So he's kind of a combination of Old Man Withers and Mr. Adams. And Julia really she's a bit like Morticia in a way. But she's also, I mean, that's kind of where her proclivities come from, the way that I hear her speaking and the way I had instructed my voice actor to kind of voice her was very kind of a little bit glamorous and very smooth and very eloquent. And Morgan is more like I don't want to, she's kind of the hippie person in the town that owns the metaphysical shop, and is probably the oldest of the three, and is old good friends with Julia, but has her own challenges and inspirations too, and Morgan's cats are my cats. My husband and I's cats. So Milu and Merlin are our real cats. And Mystera, which is Hannah's childhood cat, was my last female cat that passed. Oh. So I had to put them in the story.
I'm tearing up.
Yeah, because she died pretty suddenly. She got sick really fast, and we didn't know what was wrong with her, and she was too young to have passed. So I had to make sure I put her in.
That's so sweet. I wanted to. It's okay. I'm not gonna cry. It's fine.
No, it's all good.
I had another question and I gotta find it. Oh, your inspiration. Okay. So what was the deciding factor in, have you always wanted to do this as a series for a second book, or were you just at one point okay, maybe it needs another?
I was just going to do it as one. And one of my beta readers said, you're going to sell more if you do it in 3. And, you're going to leave everybody hanging because they're going to like the one, and you really should do it as a series. And so, I just immediately after that decided, okay, and a lot of the pieces from 1, because 1 was initially a lot longer, and a lot of pieces got taken out and put into 2. So, yes. And I'm in the process of finalizing 2 right now.
Yay!
Yes.
I'm so excited.
Yes.
So when you're looking at, when you were looking at doing 2 and the 3rd, you said the 3rd, right?
Mm-hmm.
True. Okay. Did you like have an overall plot that you were looking at? Like, do you plot or are you a pantser?
I'm a pantser. So I don't really do it like that. It'd be easier if I did, but I don't. I kind of give space to my writing process, which is not really of my choosing. It's just the way it works, right? So I every day write a little bit, and it's not chronological and it's not organizational. It's just writing. And so there's little scenes here and there, and it's all just a bunch of, I get 50 or 80 little snippets. Mm-hmm. And then I get where I am now, where I go, okay, I got to make this into a cohesive story, and, make the days and the process throughout the days and just make it flow, because it's not written that way. So,
yeah. So you said the original idea came to you in a dream. Do you still get do you get the entire story in pieces of a dream, or once you see that dream movie going in your head, do you kind of have the idea of the end, like where you want to go?
I think for the first one, for sure, it was definitely inspired by the dream, but then, of course, there's 13 dream scenes in there. Mm-hmm. And so some of those are mine and some of those are fictional. So, and some of them are like combined. So it's, so a lot of those are pieced in along the story. And the same with book 2, will continue, where it's the story and it's a dream, and it's the story and it's a dream, because really that's how our life is. And so it really follows that chronology and pieces it together even more. Now, the second book, I knew I wanted it. I always knew from the beginning what I was going to call the second one, but I didn't know really kind of what the subplot was going to be. And so that came about later on. But I knew that I wanted to continue the topic of dreams and Hannah's journey and really extend her spiritual path, because when you have a spiritual awakening, there's not just one, it's layers. It's like an onion. And so there's more work you have to do, and there's more things that are revealed, and there's more challenges that come the more you develop your clair abilities, and the more you tap into your spiritual intelligence, the more you have to grow into that. Mm-hmm. So I knew I wanted to have that be part of the underlying for book 2, while still keeping a lot of the elements from book 1.
Okay. Yeah. So the first one was in part surrounded by Halloween. Mm-hmm. Are we going to see the same thing, or are we going to pick up kind of where we left off for book 2?
Book 2 takes place 2 years later, and it's in September. So it's right before Halloween. Mm-hmm. Book 3 will be back at Halloween, but a little bit further in the future, because I'm going by celestial occurrences in real life. And so all of the celestial occurrences that happen in the series are based in real life. So the coincidence of Mercury retrograde and Halloween in 2007 was a real occurrence, and it was actually a very rare occurrence. that retrograde would end on Halloween. And there's not a lot of times where it's even in October at all. And so I also wanted to incorporate other celestial occurrences. So book 2 takes place on 9909 for the 999 portal. And if you're into New Age and that kind of thing, you may have heard of like the 888 or the 101010 or, these different moments in time where different things open up and we're able to really achieve a higher level of awareness. And so book 2 happens then, and then book 3 will be back at Halloween. So kind of bookending with Halloween. Yes.
This is also interesting. Like I said, just mainly out of ignorance and not 100% knowing a lot of things. And so, and I'm like a sponge. I want to know. So I like do research as I can. And then sometimes it's like, I just need to ask the questions because the research does not always clarify. That's
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So we would say this is like a fantasy. Would you classify it as more than one, like paranormal as well?
Yeah, it's really tough to pin it down.
So I'm like, I don't want to pin it down to one, but
so I came up with the term mysticy, which is kind of mystery fantasy, right? And it's like, which one is it first? That I'm not sure. I have a tough time with that because it's both. And a lot of times a mystery can not be fantasy at all, right? Mm-hmm. And like Agatha Christie, for example, it's not fantasy. It's just a mystery, which I love. I mean, I grew up reading those too. And then you have your fantasies, Lord of the Rings, for example, Harry Potter, very, Lord of the Rings is like high fantasy, right? It's this whole other world that doesn't really exist. Harry Potter is like magical realism where it's happening in the real world. And so this is really magical realism in that sense. I love the movie, it's the series Charmed, and it was very much, influenced by Harry Potter and Charmed in the sense that it's found powers, found family, and it's happening in the real world, even though magical things are happening. They're happening here on Earth. It's not this other Rivendell place that might not exist, right? But then also there's the whole thing about the genre, because when I started writing the short story, I thought, oh, this is a children's story. And then when I started writing it as a novel, I thought, okay, well, she's in her late 20s. This is going to be an adult book because she's not in high school. And then I thought, well, it could technically be new adult, but apparently new adult is very well known for romance. And it's really hasn't been around that long as a genre. So I thought, well, I don't really want to call it new adult either, because then people are going to be disappointed it doesn't have romance. Well, it turns out, in the first few months where I was getting reviews behind the scenes, everybody's saying either, oh, this is juvenile, or this really is young adult. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to put it on Amazon as young adult, and it hit bestseller on teen and young adult, visionary, metaphysical. So, you got to go with let the fans speak. So,
well, I mean, I guess they had it on the nose.
Yes.
So I said that to ask, and you partially answered because you said it started as a children's idea. Have you ever, do you have any ideas of maybe broadening somewhere else? I like to ask this because a lot of people are like, actually, there's this one story.
I won't say that it's never going to happen. After the series, I plan to write a nonfiction book about dream analysis, because that was supposed to come first. And this came back in and said, no, you have to finish this. And actually, we're going to make it a bigger deal. And, you're going to have to push that off. So I would like to write the nonfiction book on dreams. But then I'll probably, return to the fiction realm and possibly, it seems like whenever I do art, for example, because I paint, or whenever I write, it seems to come out very Hallmark, very cozy, very possibly young adult or whatever you want to call it. It's whimsical. It's, and that's just my nature. So it lends itself to a lot of, a broad range of readers, I would say. And I mean, look, and Harry Potter's a great example where it started out middle grade and then it became more young adult, but people of all ages love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great place to be in too, especially following a series like that, like with Harry Potter. They do, and there are other series that do it too, but to have something that can bleed into any grade type of middle grade, young adults. I feel like this would be this your story is the same. Like I feel like if my younger cousin wanted to read it, I would be like, okay, she's 13 or 14, I'd be like, no problem. Like that's not a bad thing. But if my dad was like, actually I want something, I'd be like, all right, well, I've never seen you read, but here you go.
Right.
Try this one.
Yeah. And I think everybody picks up something different from it. So that's what's interesting when I've watched so many reviews come in. And some people just absolutely love it, like yourself. Like they're just all in. Like they knew they would like it from the minute they saw it, and they love it. And other people are like, I thought I would like it, but it got complicated and it confused me and it lost me because they think it's just going to be cats and witches and brooms. And, then I start getting all philosophical and they're like, whoa, I don't know. And so, and I think you could still read it and love the story and have that go over your head. But for people who are on that journey and are ready to embrace that aspect, it hits them right with what they needed to hear, and they're like, oh yeah, this is for me. So
absolutely. And I absolutely felt the same. I've been teetering on some choices and just kind of in my personal life. And I read it and it was like, trust your instincts. I was like, all right, message heard. I'm sorry. Yes. I've been avoiding it. I got it. Please do not send me any more punches.
That's the whole reason we're writers, is because the story needs to be heard by the reader. And that's why you have to get out of your own way to get over all the imposter syndrome and all that and all the procrastination to get it out there, because the whole reason you feel like you have to write it in the first place is because somebody needs to hear that message.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And that goes, gosh. And it goes for anything that can be written anywhere. It's not even just, I mean, I had this argument with my father, because he was like, your younger cousin, she lives with my father. He was like, she's trying to read adult books. Okay, well, she's not going to get to do that. But he was like, I never said anything when you were younger, and there's nothing wrong with reading. He was like, but her life priorities are like her interaction with other kids and all of that as a 13-year-old is dwindling because she's reading. And I was like, yeah, well, like there are a lot of things that you can learn even if she's just reading like fantasy or whichever case. I was like, there are a lot of things that she can learn in those that she may not get from others her age. I was like, because Lord knows I didn't interact with a lot of people my age, and I think I'm okay.
Yeah. I mean, and I think you're right. I think it is accessible to young girls because it involves everything that I loved even when I was much younger, when I was under 10. It's all those things put together with what I've learned since then in terms of the vortexes and the sound frequencies and all the interesting metaphysical aspects that got mixed in with the story because I didn't want it to be, it's not rabbit in the hat magic. It's true magic in a sense of enacting personal change. And so it really has all of those aspects mixed in that, and somebody said, that it's kind of like a metaphysical 101 for people that are interested in that stuff, but don't really know all the parts of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a 101, even for those of us who maybe didn't even know we would be interested, it's such it doesn't come at you in an overwhelming way. Like, I feel like I'm dipping my toes in to just kind of get a broad handle on all of the options and the different ways that you can see things. Like, you may get it in a dream. I may not. I can get it a different way. And everybody's is unique to them.
Yes.
But yes. I'm also a dreamer.
Yeah. Good.
I am a dreamer.
Yes.
And there are sometimes when those dreams are a little weird. I think it was 3 weeks ago, I had 3 back-to-back extremely violent dreams. And I was like, what in the world is going on? Like, bodily harm was being caused to me. And I was like, I was so overwhelmed by, like, because I woke up in tears one night. I was so overwhelmed by the emotions that even now I'm like, I'm still trying to process. I'm weeks later trying to process, like, what is trying to be communicated here.
Right. Yep. And the emotions are really important. The feeling that it leaves you with, the one that you wake up with is very important in terms of the meaning. So,
yeah. I've slowly got a handle on it, but I was like,
work to do.
Lots of work to do. Okay. Let's do this. So when you get ready to release, what does your process look like as far as like sending out arcs with a team? How many lovely versions of edits do you have to struggle through?
Endless.
I know.
It's endless. Yeah. I mean, hopefully I'm at the end of that, but at the beginning, I do send it out to a small group of beta readers once I get and I'm going to say rough draft, because it's kind of like that final, I have to push myself to just make it copacetic enough to get it off my desk. And then once I finally get it off my desk and they have it, then I'm thinking of all the things I could have changed. And then they all come back and say, yeah, right here, you need this. I'm like, yeah, I know. And so then I do a whole nother round of whatever's before it goes to my editor. And then she doesn't really do developmental per se, but for me, but she does just a general line editing on it. And then what I discovered in this first pass, because I was new to all of this, and I realized this later, a lot of lessons. But one of them was that once I had the audiobook done and I gave the manuscript to my voice actor, then there were some changes that I made after that, and I had to keep changing it with her as she was recording it. So I would really, and also when I heard her read it, there were things where I went, ooh, that doesn't sound right. I need to change that. And so there were edits that happened just by hearing her read it. And then there were edits that happened in the process. And so, when I gave it to her in June, it was one way. It was fine. She was recording it. When I got it back from her, some of my reviewers noticed a few typos. I went in to fix those typos, and it turned out that my editing program, when I was searching on the words, it was deleting the word I was searching on and replacing it with a blank space. And I didn't realize this. So in chapter 19, there's all these missing words. And it was this mystery that I had to solve to figure out, okay, how did these just disappear out of the ether? Like, I didn't delete these words. Like, why is this happening? And I finally figured it out. But by that point, I had already ordered all of my first editions and been sending them out. And so, it's like, you do what you can. So I have a couple boxes of ones with, missing words, but they're going to be worth something someday because they're the first editions. And yeah. So.
Oh goodness. I help some indie authors that I'm close with. I help them do some beta editing and some developmental things, and I tell them, like, we're both going to be dying in edits for the next couple months. Like, it's just the process. But it's always the difference between some people and like how they use their beta as developmental, and some people who have developmental on top of line editing editors, and just the difference of processes, and whether or not someone chooses to get an agent and try to do submissions for publishing deals, or go ahead and do it for Amazon. I'm sorry, Zon has the capital. It just monopoly. It is what it is. It is so hard.
And that's why I decided to distribute wide, because I wanted to, my podcast is international, and I knew that I had people already listening to my podcast in countries around the world, in 38 countries. So I wanted my book to reach them, and I didn't want to have to limit the distribution by being exclusive with Amazon for either the audiobook or the ebook. So even though it doesn't give me that bang up front, I'm hoping that over time it's going to be really what I wanted to achieve, because that way I can support indie bookstores. It can be in libraries. It can be available to so many more people in so many more places.
Yeah, absolutely. And the libraries is the big thing, because there are a lot of places where they can't purchase books like that. They have to go through some sort of individual who has their own, or an actual library of some sort. And that's huge. I don't remember who it was. There was a book that recently surfaced on one of the social media accounts that I run. I don't remember which one it was, but there was a picture of somebody's front page with all of the legalistic and edition information, and it was like, you cannot resell this physical copy of the book. That basically, like, I couldn't sell it to another reader, and I was so confused. I was like, is that legal? Is that legal?
Nope.
Like, I'm confused.
Haven't heard of that. Yeah.
But yeah, it makes me think
so much for reused bookstores.
Right. It makes me think of one-off situations like that, because I was like, how do you expect people who can't afford to buy brand new books all the time to be able to read your story? Okay. I'm just like, all right, it's fine.
Yeah.
To each their own. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, people can choose how they want to distribute it, but for me, it's a message that needs to get out there. And yes, I would like to make a little money off it eventually, but it's more important, like my podcast, that it reach all of the readers that need to hear the message.
Yeah, absolutely. And podcast is a great way to do that too. If they already have an established rapport of some sort with you, they know, they're familiar with you from that podcast, then they're more than willing to reach it wherever they can.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's value in that, 100%. So, follow-up questions now.
Yes.
Are you a reader at the same time that you write? Like, do you read other stories?
I watch movies.
Okay, that works too.
So I watch a lot of movies, probably, I don't know, several a week. And so that's more what I do than read. Most of the time. When I do read, it tends to be nonfiction, metaphysical stuff, in the process of pursuing my PhD in metaphysical sciences. So if I have any free time, I'm reading that stuff for my classes, and it's all nonfiction. So yeah, that's pretty much where it goes.
Yeah. Do you like to watch like sci-fi? Are you Hallmark or?
I do enjoy those, although I have to agree with my husband on what we're going to watch, so I don't get to watch a lot of the softer frilly stuff because he's not interested. So it would be more mysteries and thrillers, I would say,
Yeah.
and some science fiction. Some dramas, but a lot of the time we're just looking for something that's not, it doesn't have a lot of gratuitous gore, but has intrigue.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I like documentaries.
Oh, I like those too. Yes.
The true crime has gotten really interesting here lately, and some of my boss had my coworkers and my boss have started watching like the cult documentaries.
Okay.
And the fascination I have with people who are fascinated about those things, I'm just like, you can tell me, but I'm not going to watch it.
I like documentaries, but like the documentaries that Gaia produces, I really like those where they talk about, parallel realities and, subconscious powers and time loops and quantum physics. And yeah, I really enjoy those kind of documentaries.
Maybe not in quantum physics. I'm not that smart.
It's fascinating. I mean, it really explains a lot of our spiritual experience.
I should then look into it. I don't make a note to my future self in the future self when you're editing this.
Yeah, it's more the concepts and less like the math involved because I'm not a math person, but it's more the concepts of everything happening all at once and there being multiple versions of ourselves and multiple timelines, and that our thoughts affect our reality more than we think they do, and that we are all water, right? Our body's comprised of like a huge majority of water. And when you look at scientific experiments where they play music and they watch the water interact with the sound, that's what's happening with us when we listen to sound. And so that's why sound frequency can be healing. And there's just a lot of cool, easy to understand concepts within those scientific things that help us understand the spiritual concepts.
Yeah. I didn't even think about the water aspect because I know like red light therapy is supposed to be really good for your skin. So I don't see why water therapy would not be the same. Like obviously they use that for animals and helping with joint and bone density and when it comes to them needing to like lose weight and all of that, but for some reason that just my normal brain just does not function on that level.
Right. I mean, the effect of sound, it's why music can be so healing, can be so transformative. It's why I love to, when I make my shorts, I love to add music to them all because I feel like it makes it cinematic. And the reason I like cinema is because it has the music with the visuals. It really transports you to another place. And that experience is in itself proof that there are other planes of existence, that we can be transported through those mediums.
Yeah, 100%. So that then makes me question, do you listen to specific music while you write?
I do. Yeah. I listen to a lot of the different frequencies that I mentioned in the book.
Okay.
And so the 432 and the 963 and the 888. And, I also listen to, I think it's called AMSR, the ambiance scenery that they have on YouTube, where it's like a scene and it has the pouring water and the crackling fire so I play those when I write my scenes. And that I think is why when people say, oh, I feel like I was there. It was so, the description was so, to me, I'm just like, well, I'm just describing what I'm seeing, but not everyone has the gift of words. So they can't describe it in that way, but I like to immerse myself in a scene. So if I'm writing a scene about the storm, I'll put on a video with the storm,
that was my next question.
I'm hearing the thunder and the lightning crackling in my ears, and I immerse myself in that fictional world so that I can make it real on the page.
Yeah, you said that and I thought about the storm Julia went out in, and then I'm sitting there thinking about it, and I'm like, now I'm like not even reading it at the moment, but I can remember myself reading Hannah running through the woods, like just, and it, in my mind, I'm barefoot when I'm running through the woods for some reason. I don't know why, but that was kind of the feel I got through, just like that desperate to get away, makes your heart race. And I can feel it right now. I'm like, I'm not even reading it to check my pulse.
Yes, that's the beauty of story, right? It can really transport you like that.
Yeah, and I think there is an even deeper level of beauty there with written story. Like, I have an appreciation for cinema, no doubt, but the beauty of written story, for those of us when we read that can actually see pictures. I feel bad for the people who can't. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. But you see it. You said you got it to in your dream. You see it when you're writing as a movie, and I'm getting that same thing when I'm reading it back. So that immersion, you're able to describe so well the storm, or the lightning striking, the way the trees and the leaves are rustling as she's running by, and the wind, you can feel it going by your face. All of that makes it for even more immersion when you read. It's this very tactile, even though you can't actually touch it, it's the tactile feel of being immersed into it.
Yes. And I purposely did that because I actually have a note in one of my, in Scrivener for the book one. And it said, use the senses. And that was like, what do you smell? What do you hear? What does it sound like? And that really is an immersive tactic to make it real. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I'm speechless. One, I'm kind of like in anxiety and hero worship because this book was amazing.
I appreciate that so much.
I really loved it because I haven't really read anything like that. And I've read a lot of books. Over the past 3 years, I've read well over 700 books.
Oh, wow.
So when I say I haven't read anything like that, I really mean I have not. I've read a lot of dark romance. I've read plenty of fantasy, of high fantasy, of just rom-com, and some of them have that same tactile, immersive feel, but nothing to the depth of what you wrote. And just the immersion, like, of course there are some that have been left on my mind because great stories always stick with you. But the concept of the dream and the immersion that you were able to achieve with your words is enough to leave me near speechless, just to be able to continue to think about and be in awe, and then think, okay, she's got 2 more she's gonna write, and I'm gonna be
Oh, that's so amazing. I'm so glad. I mean, you write it in a vacuum, really, and you just hope that people are going to like it. And I mean, it's always embarrassing for me to admit, but I didn't read fiction for forever and ever and ever. And so, and part of the reason I didn't truly was because I was afraid if I did, I was going to put that into mine. And so I knew eventually I was going to write, and I didn't want it to be like anybody else's. So my stupid solution was, I'm just not going to read anything for my adult life, which is a horrible solution, but it worked because you're not the first who said that. And I can't say that because I didn't read 700 books this year, and I can't say, oh, it's not like anything else. So I wouldn't know that unless someone who has can say, no, I really did read all these books and it's not like any of those.
Yeah, I have. Last year, this year so far, I'm nearing 200. Last year it was 300, and the year before, I know it was at least 106 months. So it was probably more than that in the first half of the year. And so that's why I'm saying, I'm like, there's been a lot in the past 3 years, and with confidence, I haven't seen a concept or a well execution in this manner. I've seen some similar concepts, not quite the same, as far as actually like I would say dream walking in a way.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I did hear an interesting story about someone jumping, like a Jumanji situation where they were able to do a first person like gaming as a book character, which is not really similar, but the idea of going somewhere else as yourself and taking on, that was kind of loosely concept.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've seen some really cool movies that deal with dreams, even recently, that are really unique. But they don't ever combine the witch theme and the Halloween theme with dreams. I've never seen that. So
yeah, I agree. I do agree. Gosh, I'm like all right. Let's see. I have like a list of questions that I run through. Mm-hmm. So you said you're working on your second. We're finishing up the release. You said, I can't believe January. I don't think it was January.
Oh, May.
2024 May. Okay. I was like, I remember seeing January, but I can't remember if it was your book or someone else.
Yes. So hopefully May.
I know, next year.
And it's called The Dream Mirrors.
Dream Mirrors. That's right.
Yes. And it focuses on reflection and illusion. So it uses those two concepts as really the key catalysts for the story. So even though in the first book, she's finding her place, she's finding her power, she's coming into her own, there's, like I was saying, so many layers to the spiritual path. And so in the second book, she is discovering what it means to cast aside the earthly pressures of like appearance and expectations around that. There's a new character that comes in, Jezebel, and she really becomes sort of the symbolic character for that journey. And it's transcending that. It's all about how you have to experience a death of the ego to really step into your own spiritual power. Because if you're trapped in what you think this physical body is and what you're supposed to be in this plane of existence, then you can't be the channel and the deliverer of what your soul purpose really is. And so the theme is see through the illusion. And that's really both the aspect of the mirror is the method that I use. The dream mirror method is the method that I use for dream interpretation. And so it's taking that aspect with the shadow work, and then it's layering on that kind of moral story about the death of the ego for spiritual enlightenment.
That one feel like it may or may not be a little bit heavier on the self-evaluation plane. That one is going to hit me in my feels.
Yes. Yeah, it's a little, it's just kind of like how Harry Potter started out very whimsical and then it got darker. It's, it's a little bit more deeper, and it doesn't have all of the entrapments of the Halloween theme to support it. So it's more on the fantasy side, but it still has a mystery that unfolds.
And when you were looking at doing 2 and 3, did you purposefully choose? I know you said you were talking about mirroring the celestial events. Did you purposely choose to make 2 and 3 darker in such a manner?
No, I think that they're going to have a similar lightness in terms of, because there are new spirit guides that come in. There's always different animals of the forest that are going to be her guides. And so it really still has that whimsical feel, especially the audiobook, because of the voices of the animals. So it's still going to have that aspect, but it's just another extension of the story.
Okay. I have run out of questions.
All right. Well, that's good.
Thank you so much. I have enjoyed being able to prick your brain and talk about the Dream Haunters and Dream Mirrors, and I'm so excited to see what comes next. I will be on the lookout for number 3. I know number 2 is not here yet, but I will still be on the lookout for any teasers for it because I am a fiend.
Yeah. 2 is on pre-order right now on my sites and on some retailers as well. You can pre-order it on Amazon and a few others. And so it's already on pre-order. And yeah.
If I haven't already, I will be.
All right.
For sure. Again, thank you so much for joining me. I will make sure to get all of your information that you shared and all of the books we talked about in the podcast show notes.
Yes.
That's all I got.
Yes. All right. Well, and I want to invite everybody to follow me on Instagram because that is where I'm doing a Halloween countdown this month. And every day of October, I am previewing one chapter of the Dream Haunters. And so you will get a little snippet of the audio and a little preview of each chapter because there's 31 chapters. So leading right up to Halloween.
Yay!
Yes.
Alrighty. I'm gonna stop.